Hi, I'm Milena. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the mid-year freakout tag. I was reminded by some lovely people in my feed that it was time to do this tag again. So far 2024 has been a bit strange for me. I started my own business in January. I've been more busy, I think, selling books and marketing books than really being very busy with my own reading. I've not been as involved in reading for content, so reading for vlogs. I've just been reading for book clubs, reading for my own interest really. It's not been very goal oriented, which has been the case for the last couple of years. One thing that I did not expect is that I actually wouldn't be buying a lot of books even though I opened a bookstore. I think it's because I only really want to buy books I know I want to read right away. When you sell books, it's not really a big focus to also build your own collection. Even though I can now get books much easier than before because of course I can buy them through my own shop. I'm just so focused on a shop that I'm not really focused on my own collection. So there is a question in here like the most beautiful book you bought, and I didn't even buy a special edition of a classic. I did get this edition from Wuthering Heights. This one was from the shop, but it came slightly damaged. So I was like, okay, I'll keep it for myself then. So I wouldn't really want to sell that. But if I have another edition as well, so if anything comes in slightly damaged, if it's completely damaged, of course I will return it. If it's just slightly damaged, I think it's not good enough to sell because my standards are quite high. If there's like a little damage, I'm not selling it as a new book. I keep it for myself or sell it as a secondhand book. So my priorities have definitely shifted a little bit this year, but that doesn't mean I also haven't been reading. So we can start with the first question. The first one is best book you've read so far this year. And I looked at my spreadsheet and I think I have 4 or 5 stars. I usually have more and I found I was having quite a positive reading year. My highest 5-star would be Brotherless Night. I discussed this in my most recent vlog, in a Women's Prize vlog as well, and this is such a perfect book. This is really a me book. It spans over a long period of time. We follow a character develop. We see a character grow in different kind of situations, which somehow I find the study of the human psyche within a longer period of time the most fascinating thing in a book. I think why I love To the Lighthouse as well so much, which I did reread for the Whimsical Readers Book Club, and of course I loved it again. But that is not a new favorite read. This is. In this book we follow Sashi. She lives in Sri Lanka and we follow her in the 1980s, right before the Civil War starts there. And when the Civil War starts, her family, but especially her brothers, need to decide where they stand and if they want to get involved and if they want to fight against their government. Her brothers make different decisions, but we mainly follow her as she goes through medical school and as she debates the question of how a doctor should help people. And it was such a fascinating topic in this book. It was very beautifully written, so engaging. I found it so easy to sit down with this book and to just read and to imagine everything that was happening. For me, this matches the kind of book like Homegoing, which I thought it's not really a similar book, but it has a very similar feel and reading experience to it. Even though this really embodies one character and Homegoing embodies more of a family line, of an entire family, a generation. Being so transported into someone else's world felt very similar to me. So yeah, I think this is the best book so far of 2024. I have no idea how I'm going to fill my favorite books at the end of the year if I only have a few 5 stars so far. Question number 2 is best sequel. One sequel that I really loved, that is maybe, I don't know if it's really a sequel because it's a romance series, so you can read one without having read the other, but it's still an installment in a series, and that is the Dangerous Damsel series by India Holton. And I read The League of Gentlewomen Witches, which I really liked. I will get to this book later in the video. But my favorite sequel, and yes, I am so basic for this, but that is Iron Flame. While starting my bookshop, I wanted incredibly engaging, plot-heavy books to get me through the stress and uncertainty of life, and I started reading Fourth Wing and I loved it. I of course know that it has such a big fan base, so it shouldn't have come as a surprise that it's a very readable and engaging book. And something that I'm discovering about myself this year, not only in books but also in film and TV, is that I am just a sucker for something that's very popular. I love to love things, even though I am critical in the way that I review and think about things. When something is very beloved, it's often for a good reason, and I can just get along with those reasons very easily, especially this year. Fourth Wing is one of those things. I'm not gonna tell you what Fourth Wing is about because I'm sure you know, but it's an incredibly fast-paced, plot-heavy, dangerous, crazy fantasy series. Iron Flame may not have been as good as Fourth Wing, but I was still glued to my Kindle for the entirety of it, and I've never read so many pages in a day. It took me about a week to read both of them, and I think if a sequel can hold your attention so strong still, then it's a really good sequel overall. I will say that the series is a little bit forgettable. There are many things that I don't remember anymore, especially character things that just kind of went over my head, and I loved at the time while I was reading it, but I feel no certain connection to it anymore now. I will definitely read right away the third one. I don't know when it comes out. I do kind of want an edition or a set. I think I'm gonna wait till the series is finished and get a fancy set. I'm kind of doing the same with Bridgerton, even though I don't love the books the way I love the series, because it's like really a romance of its time. I've been rereading certain Bridgerton books as well, which has been a lot of fun, but they are coming out in these beautiful hardbacks, and I think they're coming out in July or early August, and I will get them all, which I can now do through the shop. But those are sequels I've also really enjoyed. Question number 3 are new releases on your TBR, and I have quite a few. I have one through Libro FM. These are all historical fictions. One that is The Beholders I would really like to listen to. I got these through the ALC, I think, Libro FM program, so I saved that one. That one was from a few months ago. Also have these 3 physical editions. 2 of them I got because they were on the Women's Prize long list and I was really interested in them. But of course I was focusing on the short list. Did buy them, but they are for later. One is Nightbloom, which I've not heard the best things about, but I was really interested after reading the blurb. It felt like a little bit of a play on Sula by Toni Morrison, because we have 2 girls who live in Ghana and they're best friends. I think they're also cousins, and they get separated, and then it says it takes many years for their paths to cross again. And I don't really want to know a whole lot more, but that is the basic plot of Sula by Toni Morrison. So I hope that is heavily inspired by it, because I love Toni Morrison for Toni Morrison, but I've also read some literary fiction that was heavily inspired by her works that I've just adored. So anything linked to Toni Morrison is just for me, I guess. So that's why I bought this one. And then one that was... it was a cover buy, and that is the Maiden. This was also on the long list for the Women's Prize. We follow someone who is called Lady Christian, and she is arrested for murder. So I think there are 2 timelines, one in which she is arrested and the other timeline in which she leads a very normal life, and then we, I guess, discover how that all comes together. Look at that. I love the cover so much. It reminds me of The Familiars by Stacey Holz, which I have the new Stacey Holz, which is one of my favorite historical fiction authors. I have read all of her works. I have some favorites, but this sounds really, really good. Also, I love this book. It's so beautiful, like the gold foiling. This is about a group of fallen girls in the Victorian era who all get invited to a home, and I think we're going to get a bit of a mystery. I think there's some crime in here as well. Again, I don't really want to read much more, but I trust Stacey Holz because her language is so well fitted to historical fiction. I just can't wait to read it. Unfortunately, I didn't get it on the TBR because I had another historical fiction that is a book club read that I wanted to have on the TBR. So whenever I really feel like I need something like this will be the first one I pick up. Question number 4 is anticipated releases of 2024, and of course I'm going to mention Katie's new book, which comes out I think in mid-July, and that is The Trouble with Mrs Montgomery Hurts. And this is supposed to have really big cast of characters with a Jane Austen-esque feel to it. That is kind of how I summarized it in my head when I watched Katie's video about her new book. It seems quite different from her previous novel, which I love. Katie is such a wonderful person, and I love seeing her be so talented and creative and motivated to write all these beautiful stories inspired by the wonderful classics that she has read. I cannot wait to read this, and I will order it as soon as it comes out. Another book from a favorite author that I think I'm going to listen to the audiobook of, because the audiobook is narrated by Nicola Coughlan, and that is Queen Bee. This is a prequel to the Her Majesty's Royal Coven series, which is written by Juno Dawson. That series still needs to finish, so I was a little bit disappointed that we're getting a prequel instead of the series being finished, but I will still read it because I love the writing, I love the world. It's one of my favorite fantasy series. Question number 5 is biggest disappointment, and I'm going to pick books that I really thought would be good, would be awesome, would be really kind of me books. The first one that is Happily Never After by Lynn Painter, and this was just really bad. Like, I read Lynn Painter before and I've enjoyed it in different degrees, but this was such a flop. Nothing more to say about that book. Another one is also from an author I've read and loved before, and that is If Fools Would Talk by Lucy Worsley. This is a non-fiction about everything that we keep in our homes, that we use in our homes, and it was just really dry and boring. This is a subject that I love and I find so fascinating. I feel very, very curious about these things. It's like peeking into people's homes. It's almost like gossiping, but with stuff. But that's not what this book was, unfortunately. I would love to read a book on this topic that is that. But this wasn't it for me. Another book that I thought I would love is a book about art, another non-fiction book, and that is Thunderclap by Laura Cumming. I read this for the Women's Prize, and having heard other people talk about it, I thought I would really like it. This felt like a little bit of an empty non-fiction. It felt a little bit purposeless, and I don't really know why it was written or what I was supposed to do with it while reading. So it kind of left me with nothing. Non-fiction has a way of just educating you in a way that nothing else really can. And neither of these non-fiction books did that for me. Usually me and non-fiction is either low 3 or really high 4. Like I don't really have an in-between with non-fiction. It either works for me or it doesn't. Question number 6 is biggest surprise. So those are books that I didn't really expect a lot from. And the first one was a book that I picked up because I thought it would win the Goodreads prize. It didn't, but because I thought it would, I bought it when I saw it for a discounted price at a local bookstore. And that is The Wishing Game. And I did end up reading it and I really enjoyed it. This is, I've said it 1,000 times, but I'll say it again. It's a middle grade for adults. It feels like fantasy, but it's not. It's a contemporary book that's about family, it's about kindness, it's about creativity, travel, about loss, trauma. It's such a beautiful story. We follow 2 people. One is a teacher and she wants to adopt this little boy. The other one is an illustrator and he has a complicated relationship and a very loving relationship as well with the man who writes the books that he illustrates. And he and the writer live together on an island and they host a wishing game. So they host this game that the woman in our book participates in because she can win something that will help her adopt the little boy that she wants to adopt. It's as wholesome and wonderful as it sounds. Another book is a book I had never heard about before, but I read it because of the Whimsical readers book club, and that is Little by Edward Carey. This was Mary's pick, and I didn't really get into this book until I think halfway through, and then I was enamored by it. I liked the writing, but I thought it would be more dense than it actually was. Little is the story or the fictionalized version of the story of Madame Tussaud, who is Marie Tussaud in the book, or Marie with a different last name because she doesn't marry the Tussaud part very late in the book, but we follow her as she lives in Germany and Paris and she makes these wax figures. Marie was a wonderful character. This was just wonderfully written. Again, I think I like books where we follow a character over longer periods of time and we really get to know them and see them develop. This was a big surprise because I had no expectations for it. Question number 7 is favorite new author, and I don't think I have a favorite new author. I have a lot of new to me authors, which I don't think I can call favorite authors yet, but there's one author that I think could be a favorite based on the things that they have written. So I'm going to say Nell Stevens, who wrote Mrs Gaskell and Me, which is part memoir, part a bit of a fictional story of Elizabeth Gaskell's life. It's a bit of a genre bending book, which I love, and I've seen that her other works are also genre bending, sometimes, not always. She has also written just novels or just the one. I'm not entirely sure, but it's all about authors and our relationship to authors and classic literature, which sounds really up my street. So I really want to read both Bleaker House and the other book, of which I have now forgotten the title, but it sounds really, really amazing. Question number 8 is newest fictional crush, and I was considering mentioning Fourth Wing again, but like I said, I kind of forgot the characters and I don't feel a very strong connection to them. So I'm just going to mention Emily Henry's new man, or her new fictional man in a romance novel, because I did read Funny Story, which is her new release, and Miles in that book was just such a positive, happy, outgoing guy, and I feel like we get a lot of grumps in books, which, don't get me wrong, I love my grumpy sunshine romance, but this was kind of the other way around, and we know that Emily Henry likes to reverse romance tropes in here. The woman was kind of the grumpy and Miles was the sunshine, and I just really enjoyed that. He really lifted my spirits. I think he would be a really great friend, so he is my friend crush. Question number 9 is newest favorite character, and I already mentioned Little, so Marie, because again I just got to spend so much time with her and she is so unconventional. She's unconventional in the way that she looks, which is emphasized quite a bit in the book, which is also I think based on how she actually looked, so it's a bit based on real life. I also liked that she was unconventional, the things that she liked, just the way that her mind worked with the wax figures. It looks quite scary and gory, and a woman in her time I guess was expected to feel that way about those things as well, but she just had a fascination, and not in a morbid way but in a really honest, intellectual way, and I just enjoyed that so much about her. Also the way that she views romance and the way that she falls in love, it has some real beauty to it, and like beauty inside and out is also a big part of this book, and Marie was just a wonderful character to live with for a while. Another character that I found just quirky and unique was Charlotte from The League of Gentlewomen Witches. The author India Holton did do an Instagram post about Charlotte, and she said that Charlotte had autism, and she kind of explained how that worked for Charlotte, and I really liked how it was connected to her love for books, and that she kind of mirrored her behavior with a lot of Jane Austen characters, and it just made for a really fun character to read about. I think with Charlotte what I like most is that she is so completely different from me, and that she surprised me in certain things and in certain actions, and how free she was, especially in her interaction with her love interest, considering the time, which is Victorian when this plays out, and the way that she discovers her own feelings of romance and sexuality, I think made Charlotte quite a unique character, and I love that in a romance. Question number 10 is book that made you cry, and I'm going to mention Fourth Wing again. If you are so intensely reading a book and the author just knows where to hit, the author knows what to do because they know you're so invested, then yeah, when certain things happen, I cried a bit. So yeah, that happened. Again, I think not worth talking about very much anymore. Question number 11 is a book that made you happy, and I'm going to mention The Last List of Mabel Beaumont. This is a contemporary novel about an elderly woman who becomes a widow and who starts to befriend and connect more with the people around her, and she starts to build very strong friendships, and we discover more and more about her past and all the love that was in her past, kind of the truth about her marriage as well, and you see everything so gently and beautifully written and how nuanced a marriage and a life is. This reminded me a little bit of the Frederick Bachman book, I think, with a very long title. It has the same core, the same vibe, but very different writing style and very different characters as well. Just made me really happy to see so many imperfect people, so many flawed people come together and form friendships. Question number 12 is most beautiful book you bought, and like I said, I haven't been buying a lot of books, only really for the women's prize and any books that I needed for book clubs, but the book that was disappointing but it's very beautiful is Thunderclap, because it has all these lovely illustrations. I love that it's more of a square book. It's very unique. It feels the dust jacket feels very nice and soft, and it really feels like one of those books that you buy at a museum. Very heavy as well, and I did enjoy reading it because you of course cannot see, but it is very thick quality paper. A really high quality book, and that's the best I can offer for this question. Although I think if we're going for flashy and pretty, The Household would also work. It's very flashy, but a bit more of a standard hardback. I do know that later in the year I want to buy the Bridgerton newer collection hardbacks with the colored sprayed edges. I think there are 2 books bind into one, so I think it's a total of 4 or maybe 5 books, and I've almost read all of them, not all of them. I've not read the first 2, and I thought I would, but I definitely think that the later books are less problematic than the first ones. The earliest book I've read is Benedict's book, and that was painful because I love Benedict in the show, everybody does, but book Benedict is that man is something else. The word consent is not in his dictionary, and I feel like most Bridgerton men or Bridgerton love interest have bit of a hard time with that word, the women as well, just Bridgertons in general. So it's more my love for the show and my love for the later books that make me want to get that collection. A Dutch illustrator has designed the first 3 books with kind of movie tie-in vibes. She's selling them as prints, and I did get all 3. I will leave a photo here, which I'm really loving, and I think I will display somewhere here behind me, because the Bridgerton series, I am like any basic bitch and I'm completely obsessed. That leaves me with the last question, my TBR for the rest of the year. I have of course the book clubs, and I have my top 20 or 24 classic lists, because it's 2024. I've not been making a lot of headway with that list. I will leave a screenshot right here of how far I'm in, which classics I still really want to read this year. I'm currently reading 2 that are on there actually. I'm reading Jude the Obscure and I'm reading A Passage to India. So those 2 should be finished a little before July, I'm hoping, and we will see how far I get with the rest of them. I did also upload a TBR video if you would like to watch that for my summer TBR. Leave me a comment down below with the title of a classic that you would really like to read this year. For now, I hope that you have a lovely day or evening, and I hope to see you in another video. Doei!